Good morning, everyone. Thanks so much for being here. It's the Caring Conference, our treasured transformations. We're going to spend the day talking about our transformations. And I'm thrilled and excited to have Heather kick us off. Her presentation is called Beautiful, Brutally Beautiful. Thank you, Heather. Thank you for being here. Take it away.
Good morning, everybody. So excited you're here. Thank you, Denise. And I know it's a tongue twister, isn't it? Get you early in the morning. Blah, blah, blah. I was just talking to Denise and I wanted to take a second and seeing all the comments in the chat that I think we're having this amazing shift right now in caregiving. There's this energy, there's this awareness around it. And it is important to look at where we need to go, but I think it's super important to just take a moment and look at how far we've come. For me, from when I was young, as you'll hear, as a youth caregiver to when with my son, this transformation that's happened just there is incredible and has come so far. And thanks to Denise for helping, as we say, in No Barriers Land, pioneer that for us. And I think today, just as we look at where we're going, it's important to have a moment to notice where we're at. So thank you, Denise. My name is Heather Zoccali, and I live what I like to call a brutally beautiful life. I have been in caregiving or cared for my entire life. My father, when I was 9, had a massive stroke and left him partially paralyzed on one side. And at 9 years old, when you see your hero go to someone who couldn't walk or talk, and at that point talk about the transformation, I was told to never make him upset, not show emotion, keep the house quiet, basically be the opposite of what a 9-year-old is supposed to be. And so that struck me at such a young age. And of course, me being me, I did the complete opposite. When I was riding up the elevator to see my dad, the doctor and my mom wouldn't look at me. They said, you need to be quiet, don't show emotion, and you could upset him and you could make him worse. To a 9-year-old who has no idea what's going on. And I got up there and I saw my dad was 6'2", this big old Southern character, Big D is what we called him. And I saw him and he looked obviously different. When face was drooping, he couldn't move half his body. And I just burst into tears. I was like, Daddy, and went up on the hospital bed and hugged him. And he started just bawling. And we were having this moment together, which for me was human. And I needed it as a 9-year-old kiddo. And the doctor, my mom, just jerked me off. And I was like, you're not going to stop me from showing my emotions to my daddy. And the doctor is like, you could make him worse. Well, and I said, well, I could make him better. And so at that moment, I was like, this is a pretty brutal thing. I didn't know the word brutal, but I knew some beauty was going to come out of it. I just had that feeling innately. I didn't know what it was going to be or what it was going to look like. My family home, growing up, was anything but ideal. I had a mother that had pretty severe mental health issues. She had psychopathic tendencies and borderline personality disorder. I grew up with a younger brother that lives with schizophrenia, and then my older brother who sexually abused me for years. And so I was in a caregiver role for a lot of reasons. I just didn't know it. And again, maybe, Pat, I don't know why, but I always knew I needed to take little breaks for myself, whether that would be going outside and trying to find 4-leaf clovers, whether that would be just running around and making up my own worlds that I was Queen of Mars and owned Jupiter. And that was a little control from for a 9-year-old kiddo with this chaos going around. But I always knew that if I didn't take a moment for myself, that's when I would get super emotional and all these things would happen as a little kid. And I think kids innately know kind of what they need. It's just whether they feel empowered to take it. And so after 18, family life, that's a whole nother thing for another day, but that's enough to start off, right? Good morning. And so at 18, I moved away to the furthest place from Kentucky you can do, Wyoming, Laramie, Wyoming, the University of Wyoming. If there's any cowboy fans there, go Pokes. And so I went to study dance education mainly. And there I met a boy, got married, and then got divorced, and then did more studying, met another boy, got married. After my second little nugget, I found myself on the opposite side of caregiving. I found myself being cared for. They didn't know what was going on with me. I was having month-long hospital stays, renal failure. I was passing out. I had a seizure disorder. They were just like, we have no idea what is going on with you. And this went on for almost 5 years, off and on. And I would have month-long stays. I would have being in bed for months at a time. And it was at that moment I saw the toll caregiving was taking on my family. I saw my husband being stressed at work, stressed in the house, not having friends understand. And I saw my kids being worried, like, his mom, are you okay? And I knew from my situation growing up, I wanted it to be open. And I said, Matt, don't hide things from them. If I've had a seizure, just say, okay, your mom just had a seizure. She's okay now. She's at the hospital. Just like tell them the facts and then tell them we can talk about it. And so I wanted to establish that communication right away, because I knew for me, being told not to do anything and not talk about it wasn't healthy for our family. So I was the complete opposite. Let's talk about it. And so through much research, detective sleuthing, all that, they found out I live with Ehlers-Danlos Syndrome, which is it's a rare disease. It's connective tissue. It basically affects your whole body. And then with that comes seizures and POTS, which we're hearing a lot about now with COVID. And it's just basically regulating your nervous system. And so I now live to learn a pretty normal life with that. And when I need to take a day in bed, some days work looks like this. Some days it's me in bed with all my devices on and getting it done. So, and my family has learned to adapt with that. March 10th, 2015 started out like a normal day. Me and my then 16-year-old son were arguing, which I now realize we were arguing about mundane things. I was saying he wasn't living up to his potential. He was mad at me for saying that. And normally, if we had a little tiff, we would always say, I love you, make good choices. That day, we did not. He left the house and he slammed the door. I had a migraine and I was just like, okay, I'm just going to let him cool off. I'll just let him have a moment. I laid down. 5 minutes later, I heard all these sirens. And it didn't even occur to me that would have anything to do with our life. I was like, gosh, I hope whoever that is okay. So I laid down. 5 minutes later, my husband comes screeching in the house. Why aren't you picking up your phone? Why are you not picking? I was like, what's going on? I had a headache. He's like, Connor's been in an accident. And I was like, oh my God, the sirens were Connor. And I immediately thought, oh my God, today, like that can't be the last thing I said to my son. Please don't let that be the last thing I say to my baby boy. And he's like, you got to call. They won't tell me anything. And I call, and it's typical. They're like, your son's been in a vehicle pedestrian accident, is what they said, and he's in critical condition. I need you to get here as soon as you can. So it's about 20 minutes away, the medical center of the Rockies, here in Colorado. And so the whole way down, I look at my husband. I'm like, oh my God, we had the biggest fight this morning. I'm like, I failed epically as a mom this morning, Matt. Like, I wasn't patient. I wasn't kind. Now I didn't protect him, and I don't think I'm going to be able to fix him. Every part of a mom that you're supposed to be, I failed at. And I didn't say I love him. And I was like, I have to see him. I hope, please don't let that be the last thing we say to each other. So we get there, they bring us in the room of doom, what I call it, because nothing good ever comes out of that horrible little room they put you in. And the doctor was like, look, right now your son does not have function below the waist. We don't think it'll ever happen. And we need to take him up to surgery as soon as possible. Are you okay with that? And I was just like, yeah, obviously, let's save his life. And in the corner of my eye, I saw a police officer. And I thought, accident, maybe that's why we're there. So I was like, I just need to see my son. We didn't have a good morning. Can you that's all I care about right now. And as we're walking out, the police person came up to me and she said, I just want you to know it was a hit and run. And I was like, I can't even process that information right now. I have to thank you. And I looked at my husband and he was like, he's like, just go. And I was like, I'm just compartmentalizing that piece, what I just heard. And so I get up and I get to see him, and he has these big blue eyes, and he's obviously doctors, nurses all around. And he was like, Mom. And before that, I'm going to backtrack. The ER doctor said, hey, I just want to tell you, you have an incredible son. And I was like, thanks. I know. Can I see him? And he's like, since the people that found him, the firemen, the EMT, nurses, doctors, he hasn't once asked about his legs. He hasn't once asked about his pain. All he's done, it's on repeat, is asked, have you seen my mom? Have you seen my mom? Can you tell her she needs to forgive me. I was such a jerk this morning. And I was like, oh my God. I felt epically, I need to tell him that. So I see him and he has these big blue eyes and he just starts crying. He's like, Mom, I was such a, and I was like, stop. We both were not our best today. We both kind of sucked, to be honest, and that's okay. But that's in the past. We're right here in the present. And I get to hold you. I get to see you. And I want you to know life is going to be hard. Life is totally changed right now. Let's be honest. We don't know what this is going to look like. But I do know that I can promise you I'm going to be with you every part of the way. We're going to figure this out. And we're going to have a kick-ass life. We just don't, it's just going to look different. I said, so get through this and I'll see you on the other side. And then he looked at me and asked me the hardest question I've ever been asked in my life. Mom, can you fix my legs? And I was like, oh, yeah, no, I wish I could. I wish I could be in your position, but I can't. I can't fix your legs. But again, I'll be here beside you and we'll get through this. So the next morning, my husband asked him, Connor, how you feeling? Kind of a dumb question, right? But Connor looks up and he's like, kind of like I got hit by a car. And we were all like, wow, that was kind of dark, but that's good. You have your humor. So I'll take it. And so after that, we did 2 months of rehab at Craig Hospital in Inglewood, Colorado. And it was there that I had an aha moment. I saw caregivers and families going around. And again, what I saw in my family, these caregivers were getting the life sucked out of them. They weren't taking time for themselves. They weren't showering. They weren't taking a walk. And I had gotten a bunch of us together and I was like, hey, let's go grab a drink. Our loved ones are up for the day. Why don't we just go have a moment? And they looked at me and they're like, are we allowed to do that? And I was so struck by that. I was like, wow, yes, you are allowed. I mean, if you need permission, I'll give you permission. Like, we should do it and you need to do it because you have to start practicing taking care of yourself now, or it's just like, wow. And so in that moment, I realized I wanted to do something for caregivers. I had to quit my career, teaching dance in schools, which I loved, but it wasn't possible. And when we moved home, trying to, you know how it goes. We all get that part of it. But I knew I needed to do some work on myself. I knew I needed to clear up some space and I needed to forgive the gentleman that hit Connor. They did end up finding him. We had this whole trial, this whole shebang. And in it, I knew I didn't want my family to do how my family growing up did. A lot of bitterness, anger, like being the victim. I was like, we're not doing that. I was like, I get it. If you're angry, all that, we can deal with that. But at some point, it's going to be on you to choose. That is a part of our life, but that's in the past and we can't change it. But we can choose. We have the power of choice to choose how we're going to deal with it. And I said, so as a family, we're going to do this. And I knew I had to model that. And for me, forgiveness, I had practiced it before and had known the power of it. And that's talking about transformation. It's such an internal transformation. Sometimes when you hear forgiveness, you're like, oh, it's about the other person. No, it's about you internally, what you need to do for yourself, and such a gift to give yourself. My older brother had found me. I had left home and been estranged. It just wasn't healthy for me to be around my family. And my older brother tracked me down and called me one day on the phone. And he just said, look, I need to say I'm really sorry and I need you to forgive me. And I said, thanks for calling. And hung up. It was like a visceral, like, wow, I wasn't expecting that. And then I took some time and did some work. And I got to the point and I was like, I'm going to call him back and let him know I do forgive him. I don't condone what you did. I'm not going to, we can't forget, but I do forgive you because I need to release that for me. And it was this beautiful moment of, oh man, that frees up a lot of room. And what a way to take your power and your voice and your narrative back. And I felt that. And then I noticed like, oh my gosh, okay, this is amazing. And so I knew with this gentleman, I needed to forgive him. So Restorative Justice reached out to me, which if you don't know about Restorative Justice, they work with you they're incredible. meet with the person that hurt you. They call you the victim, and I was like, don't call me a victim. You can say this person changed our lives, but we're not victims. And I met with him. It's a year-long process. It gives you your power back again with all the choices you have. And I walked in that room, not sure. I was like, maybe I'm kidding myself. I'm not going to be able to forget this gentleman. But I walked in and I said, look, he said, well, I can't believe, why do you want me here today? And I said, well, I want you here because me and you weren't at our best that day. And I want me and you to be better. I'm trying to be a better mom. I'm going to fail at it. There's going to be days that I suck at it. I said, but I want you to be better than you were that day you left my son on the side of the road. And I'm going to be better. And if we're both just a little bit better, who knows what ripple effects will happen. And if you would have told me 2 years before that, I'd be hugging and crying with a gentleman that hit and paralyzed my son and took off, I probably would have had a couple words where you're like, but it was this beautiful moment and this big release and what I needed to transform into my next phase. And so after that, that's when I knew, okay, something with caregivers, but I'm going to take care of caregivers where I can find me again. I miss Heather. I miss being able to just go have a drink and not talk about Connor or not talk about my sickness. I just want to be like me. Like, I'm a person too, and I have thoughts and feelings. And so it was about giving caregivers a moment to deal with their grief, their trauma, their loss, because we so often are focused on, oh gosh, Connor's life is, but no, all of our lives were affected. My younger son had to almost become the older son. My husband was triple caregiving now. And so I just wanted to create that space where it was okay and have real talk and no judgment. And we're all coming in at different phases and uniqueness. And that's what's beautiful about it. And so I started the Arch Foundation, and then and it was to support caregivers on their own journey. And so then we merged with No Barriers about 3 years ago now, and we give retreats for caregivers. And throughout that, I've just been able to see what forgiveness does for people. And when these caregivers are on this retreat and they forgive themselves, that's when I'm like, it always begins with self-forgiveness. That's where the work begins. And it's a journey. It's going to ebb and flow. And it's not like you're going to be like, whoop, I got it, I'm done. And then you're able to release, and forgive others. And so 2020 found me back, thrust into the caregiver role. My brother called me during COVID and he was like, you got to get back home. I don't know what to do with mom and dad. They're really far gone. So I talked to my family. I'm like, I feel like I do have to do this. I'm just going to go back. I'll set up resources and then I'll be back. And I got home and I realized my mom definitely had cognitive issues going on. And honestly, I was amazed that my parents were like functioning. I mean, just day to day. And then on my third day back, my father, we had a moment and he was just like, I don't want to be in this pain anymore. And I was like, I'm making tacos. And I was like, Dad, I'll bring a taco back. And on my way to bring a taco back, my father chose to commit suicide. And so again, I found myself thrust like, oh man, was I a serial killer in my past life? Because this is like so much stuff going on. How much can one person take? And I found myself in the caregiver role for my mom now, and then all the ripple effects that suicide has. And forgiveness. I knew I needed to forgive my dad because that wasn't going to do that. That trauma didn't serve me. And that was his choice. It wasn't mine. And then I knew I had some big work to do around my mom and me. And she was back in my life. And with her mental illness, it was causing all this chaos and it was going into my family. So I had to put some strict boundaries. We brought her back to Colorado. She's now in an assisted living home. I go see her weekly just because for me, that's what I need. And a lot of people don't understand and they don't have to, and that's okay. So forgiveness with my dad and with my mom and with the gentleman that hit Reggie and with myself during all that. So much self-forgiveness, feeling guilty about dad. Oh, should I have been here these 15 years? All that goes on. And none of that serves me. None of that is good for me. None of it's good for those around me. And again, I want to model that behavior for my kids too. So they know it's not just talk, that I'm actually, walk on the walk. And it's led to these beautiful conversations with my boys, and I've seen them transfer. And that brutally beautiful, the reason I say that is because we all have brutal moments, but it can turn into beauty. And seeing, I mean, life is brutally beautiful, but seeing and creating the beautiful bits, that's on us. That's on you. And so that's just a bit of my story, a lot in the morning, I know, and I just appreciate you guys giving me time and space to do that. And so at our retreats, we go past, present, future. They're 3 days. And so past is obviously recognizing and owning our past, and we have it, but it's up to us to choose how we are going to move forward with that. Present is owning, like, this is where I'm at today. It might be great. It might be not be. It might be blah, blah, blah. I don't know what it is, but it is. And the future is like, yes, I want to go forward. What's my vision going to be? I deserve the dreams. I deserve goals. What is that going to look like? But on our first night, we do a forgiveness ceremony. And it's where I open up. Like, there's not much of my life that's hidden. You know, I'm pretty open about it. And it's been hard, and it's been brutal, and it's been beautiful, and it's been like, you name it. And I seem to have gotten it this time around, because I literally think I was this like evil empress maybe. And so we start with, it's anonymous, and I'd love for you guys to, thank you guys so much for the comments. I'm really bad about checking comments. I'd love you. We do it fears in a hat when we're around the fire, but when we do it virtually, it's fears in a chat. And the reason I do that is because a fear, we can own it and we can voice it, and then we take a little bit of its power away. And so if you have a fear and the other thing is to have that common thread. One, we're all human. Loss, grief, suffering, anger, all that is a human connection, and it reminds you you're not alone. And so to put just fears that you have in the chat, and you can turn your camera off if you want to be anonymous, you could just put it in. And then it's always incredible to me to see the connections we have, what fears we have. And so I just want you to take a couple minutes and just, I also want to say vulnerability and compassion and owning your story are superpowers. And I hope you can start taking that and being like, you know, I'm going to use my vulnerability as a superpower, because I'm going to share all of this with you. And it doesn't matter what you do with it. I'm going to give it freely and not expect anything back. And then the choice of it. So if you take a few minutes and think about a fear maybe that you have now or you've had in the past that you want to let go, and just put it in the chat.
And just a heads up, we're just about at 8:25. So we'll go ahead and wrap it up in the next couple minutes. And the comments are great for you to read when you finish up, Heather, the comments in the chat room. Everybody has said how touched they are by your story. And what I think people really resonate with is it is brutal, and there's beauty to it as well.
Thank you. Wow. And you guys can read, there's a lot of fear, financial, that always family support, no one taking care of me. Thank you guys for sharing your fears. Afraid of not doing enough for my mother, feeling guilty. It's so valid and so important. And you see, there's a lot of, like, again, it's that thread of common, like, we're all through this, we're not alone. And you shouldn't be ashamed of your fears. And then lastly, after you've done your fear, I would like you just to put in there, again, it's a journey, and just think about something you want to let go. I want to let go of this. I give you permission to let go of it. Give yourself permission, and just voicing it and putting it out there is the first step. And then that seed will stay with you, and think on it. So put in there something you want to let go. This is beautiful, you guys. Fear of not knowing what to do. Did I take care? Fear of a negative impact on each other. I want to let go of my fears of financial insecurity. Yes, fear of making the wrong decisions. Let go of what isn't in my control. Well, you guys, I know I need to wrap it up and keep it going, and keep thinking about that throughout the day, and soak up all this yumminess we have and how you want to transform. Thank you for being here and giving me the space to share my story. And I hope it gives you a bit of my superpower to be able to own your narrative and take it and use those things that we normally look as, I'm not going to do it, as a superpower, and go out there and make some brutally beautiful lives.
Thank you, Heather. That was awesome. And I just want to mention this morning in Chicago, it has been cloudy and the sun has just started to come out during your transformative exercise, which I always think is fascinating how the
Wow.
universe responds. Thank you, Heather. That was awesome. That was awesome.
So much.